Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is a drawing that we will be completing in today's video. This very simple little house scene where we use some very simple techniques and a few different tools in Procreate to help us get this result. So if you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer extra exclusive tutorials over on Patreon. So that's linked in the description below if you'd like to check that out. When you join there, you get access to exclusive tutorials every month, along with sneak peeks of what we're drawing over here on YouTube. And if you join right now, you get access to all of the tutorials that I've posted so far. But before we get started on today's video, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just save the file to your iPad and then double tap it or click on it and click open in Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. And then I will post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we'll get started. Okay, this is our color palette that we'll be working with today. So we aren't going to set the background color yet. It's this really light blue color, the first one on the first row. We're going to leave the background white for now, and we'll do that at the end, just because our house colors end up getting kind of light, and I don't want that to interfere with, our drawing yet. So it all looks good at the end when everything's in place, but I just don't want to be drawing the house and have a hard time seeing it with that blue background. So we're just going to leave it white for now, and we are going to just go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start with the roof of the house. We'll get that in place and then draw everything from there. So to do that, we are going to be on layer 1 on our layer menu, and the first thing we're going to do is turn on Symmetry. So we're going to go to our gear icon under Canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide, click Edit Drawing Guide, and set it to Symmetry. You should see a vertical line here. If you don't, just click Vertical under Options here, and then click Done. And then most importantly, we want to make sure that our layer menu now, this layer says Assisted on it. It should. If it doesn't, just click on it and turn on Drawing Assist. But that means that Symmetry is active on this layer. Then we're going to grab our first color on the second row of the color palette, this kind of teal color, and our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. I have that selected. My opacity is at 100 for the brush. My size is at 30. And we're just going to start right on our symmetry line here, a little ways down, pretty small. So we're like about halfway down from top to bottom on my symmetry line. And I'm going to draw a line going out like this. Hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth, and then touch your finger on the screen and find a good angle. So I'm going to probably go with this angle here. If I keep snapping it, because it keeps snapping around. If I snap it to vertical, I'm 1, 2 out from vertical. I'm going to leave that about there. Again, nice kind of short line, something about like this. Okay, from here, I'm just going to go in a smidge. So right on the end of the line here, I'm going to go in towards the center, hold it down until it turns perfectly straight, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. So just a thin or short horizontal line there. If you need to, you can click this line button at the top to adjust it, so you can move it around to kind of make it meet up in that corner more nicely. And you could have done that with your last line too. If your last line needed to be moved to meet in the center better, go ahead and move it around. Just a teeny tiny little line there. And then I'm going to start right there again with my pen and go back to the beginning, to the center line there. Hold it down, touch your finger on the screen to make it that same angle that we had before, and then meet up at the middle there. And so then we have a good connected shape that we can fill in. And that is the start of our roof line. So that looks great, nice and skinny, looks good. Okay, so now we're going to kind of move it around in places. So select it with your arrow tool on uniform. I'm going to make sure snapping is turned on in the bottom left. And essentially, I'm going to kind of drag it around until my right edge, I might downsize it a little bit and then drag it around until my right edge hits that vertical line. So you'll see that vertical yellow line there, basically where our symmetry line is, and it's going to touch that on the right edge of my little triangle here. And then in terms of height, if I drag it around, I see this horizontal yellow line that's like hitting the middle of my shape. So that means that it's centered horizontally from top to bottom. I'm going to drag it a little bit lower than that, not quite to where like the top of my triangle hits that horizontal line, but kind of somewhere in between there. So it's a little bit lower than halfway from top to bottom, and then to the left of the symmetry line right on top, right on it basically. That looks good. Then we're going to make the rest of the roof. So on my layer menu, I'm going to slide to the left on this layer and hit duplicate. I'm going to grab the bottom one. I'm going to click on it and turn on alpha lock so that we can recolor it. I'm going to grab the second color on the second row. Back to my layer menu, click on this layer and click fill layer, and then it just fills in that shape there. You don't see it because it's behind this other one, but we'll see it here in a second when we go to move it. But again, just that is a good way to recolor so you get every single pixel. If you drag and drop, sometimes it leaves like a fuzzy edge. So turning on alpha lock and then filling it gets every single pixel with that new color. But now we're going to click on it and turn alpha lock off, and we're going to click on it and turn drawing assist off. So we don't want symmetry on anymore on this bottom layer. But same color, same brush. I'm going to grab it with my arrow tool with snapping on. We can move it on to the right here, and then you'll see these 3 blue lines that line them up together perfectly. So that's where we want to be. So good ways to the right, maybe a little further to the right then, and like a little further away from the symmetry line than we are on the left side, or something like that. Now we're on this bottom layer with that same color, and we're going to connect it across the top and the bottom. So from this top line, I'm going to drag straight over till we hit the other one, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen so it connects there nicely with a nice horizontal line. Click the line button at the top if you need to move it at all. I might move it up a smidge, make sure it looks nice there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but a good straight line to connect them. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing across the bottom. So from this corner, basically, I'm going to go across the bottom to this right corner of the other one. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, click the line button to move it if you need to, up or down or side to side, but just kind of connect it there across the bottom as best as you can. And then I'm going to connect them to fill it in. So I'm going to draw a line right here to here, hold that down until it turns nice and smooth. And then we can fill in these 2 sections. Make sure they fill in nicely and there's no little gaps. If there are gaps, go ahead and just erase or just fill them in as well with your pen. And that is our roof line. So now with our roof line in place, we can draw the rest of our house. I might make it a little bit smaller though. So I'm going to go to my layer menu and I'm happy with these. So I'm just going to snap those 2 together. I'm going to grab it with my arrow tool on uniform. I might downsize the whole thing a little bit more and then kind of center it on my yellow line here is good. The vertical one, again, lower than halfway from top to bottom. But that looks good for my house there. I'm going to make the rest of it now. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, add a new layer, drag it below our other layer there, and then grab our house color, the first of our house colors anyway, the 5th one on the second row. And I'm going to grab my selection tool and I'm going to set it to rectangle and turn on color fill. And this is how we're going to draw our house. I'm going to start right about at the very edge of my roof line here, like so. The very right edge, I'm going to go in a little bit and then kind of right on it or a little bit above it so that it gets covered up by the roof there. I'm going to start there. I'm going to draw down and then over until we meet this other kind of corner of our roof line there. And then this is like the height of our house. So draw it as short or as tall as you would like and then let it go to fill it in. You can grab that with your arrow tool if you want on freeform or uniform, and you can like extend it or make it taller or make it shorter or taller or anything like that. We still want a good amount of room on the bottom for like a little step and some bushes and stuff. So I think this looks good. Then same layer, just with our pen tool, same color. I'm just going to go ahead and connect this area so we can fill it in. So I'm going to connect underneath my roof line there from up and then back down, so that's all connected to fill in right there. And then that is the start of our house. So now we're going to make the right side a little bit lighter, kind of like we have on our roof here. So on my layer menu, I'm going to click on this layer and turn on alpha lock, so we only draw within this shape. And then I'm going to grab my lighter color, the 6th one on the second row. Back to my selection tool with rectangle and color fill turned on. I'm going to start outside the bottom right of my shape, a good ways outside, and draw across, covering this whole right side of my shape until we hit like the left edge of this darker roof piece basically, and then let that go to fill it in. So now it looks like there's a little angle there. Okay, next up, let's make our chimney. That's going to be very similar. So on my layer menu, let's add a layer to the top of all of our layers. And we're going to grab our first chimney color, which is going to be our first color on the second row. Monoline brush still at 30%. And I am going to start essentially maybe right roughly in the middle of my roof here somewhere at the top, right on that top line. I'm going to start there and draw down and to the right a little bit and hold that down. Okay, from each of these angles, I'm going to draw straight up. So I'm going to draw up from this side, hold it down, touch my finger on the screen to make it perfectly vertical. Just a little ways above my house is good, something maybe like that. Same thing on the other side, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly vertical. It doesn't matter if they're not quite the same height, we're going to cover up this top line with the lip of the chimney, but try to make it as close as you can. I'll draw a line across to connect it, but again, it can be a little messy up there, that's okay. Let's go ahead and fill that in. Then we want the left side that goes on the other side of the house. So we're going to go to our layer menu and we're going to add a layer right above our bottommost layer. So we're underneath our roof layer. We're going to grab our darker teal, the third one on the second row. And let's just grab our selection tool to make it easier. I'm going to start right about at the top of my roof here underneath my right side piece as well. And just kind of draw out until we hit the top. And let that go to fill it in. Maybe a little thinner from left to right than this right piece is, if that makes sense. So we kind of have a little 3D effect going on there for the top for our chimney. Now we're going to cover up this top line like I mentioned before. So on our layer menu, let's add a layer to the very top of our layers. And let's grab our second color on the second row, selection tool. And I'm just going to start and go ahead and draw a quick really skinny rectangle to cover up the top line here. Skinny from top to bottom, goes out on each side a little bit from left to right. If you need to, you can grab it with your arrow tool on freeform and you can move it around, resize it, stretch it out, anything like that. And again, we're going to add a slight 3D effect to it. So back to my layer menu, click on this layer, turn on alpha lock so we can only draw within this shape. Go back to our first color on the second row. Selection tool, rectangle and color fill. I'm going to start on the outside top left and draw until we hit right where those two shapes come together below it. So it puts that left side in shadow as well. And then that is our chimney on our house. Very, very cute. Okay, the last things to add to our house are our windows, our door, and our step in front of it. So let's go ahead and just create the door next. So on our layer menu, I'm going to go just right above our house layer, add a new layer there. I'm going to grab my bright red color, first one on the bottom row. Selection tool again, rectangle and color fill still turned on. And I'm going to start maybe just down and to the left from this like corner here. So where it changes from lighter to darker, right where that corner is, I'm going to go down and to the left of it a little bit. Start there and make a good kind of rectangle extending to the bottom of my house there and then let that go. It doesn't have to meet up perfectly. We're going to cover that part with the step. But if you want to, you can grab it with your arrow tool on freeform or uniform, drag it around, resize it, something like that. Might make it a little bit shorter from top to bottom. Okay, same layer, we're going to make our windows. I'm just going to grab my window color, the last one on the second row, 7th in line. Same selection tool, rectangle and color fill turned on. I'm going to make a little window to the right of the door here, so I'm going to start a little bit higher up and make kind of just a good square window there. Let that go. I'll turn my selection tool off, turn it back on, and make a rectangular one on the left side here. Let that go. If you need to move either of these around or resize them, you can grab your selection tool, turn color fill off, and then you can select around one of the windows. Grab it with your arrow tool, and then you can move it, resize it, anything like that. Since they're all on the same layer, you can't just grab it with your selection tool, it selects everything. But yeah, you can use your selection tool with color fill turned off to select all the way around the window, and then click your arrow tool to select just that part of the layer. But that looks good for my windows and my door. Now we're just going to add a little 3D effect to them as well. So layer menu, click on this layer and turn alpha lock on. So I'm going to grab my 5th color on the second row. Selection tool again with rectangle and color fill turned on if you turned them off. And I just want to make a little lip on the inside right side of my window here. So I'm going to go start on the outside of it and draw inwards until I just cover just a little sliver on the right all the way from top to bottom. Let that go to fill it in, and now it looks kind of 3D there. We're going to do the same thing for my door on the right side again. So switch to my darker door color, second one on the bottom row. Same idea, same layer, selection tool again. Start on the outside top right and cover just a sliver of it, like so. And then for our other window here, we're going to see the left inner side of it. So we need to find a darker color than this house piece. So that house piece is the fourth one on the second row. So let's go to the second one on the second row. Selection tool again, rectangle and color filter on, start on the outside top left this time and cover a sliver there. So that is all of our window and it's our windows and doors and it's their 3D effect. Lastly, to finish off our house, we just need the step in front of it. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer on top of my window layer is good. I'm going to grab my first color on the second row. I'm going to grab my selection tool again, rectangle and color filter on, and we're going to draw this in front of our door, starting a little to the left and above the corner here, so we can cover the whole bottom like this, and then it goes below our house as well, and then further off the right side than the left side of our door. So I let that go to fill that in. Grab it with your arrow tool if you want to resize it, move it around. But again, we're covering the bottom of our door and the bottom of our house, going a little lower than our house, and then sticking out on each side, left and right of our door, a little further to the right than the left, just because of the angle that we're looking at it from. And then we need a little block on the left side to make it look 3D again, just like we did for our chimney and stuff. So on my layer menu, I'm going to click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, grab my darker teal color, third one on the second row. Selection tool, rectangle and color filter on, and starting at the top left outside of my shape, I'm going to draw inwards and just cover up the left side a little bit, like going into our door even is good. Let that go to fill it in. And that's kind of like the little block in front of our house that shows that it's 3D and you step up there to get to our door. That looks amazing. Done with our house. So now we have our trees, bushes, sun, and smoke, and then we'll change our background color as well. But otherwise, the house is done. That is looking good. So our other pieces are going to be a lot more simple. So let's just go ahead and get started. We'll probably do our tree first, and then we'll duplicate it for our second tree, and then do our bushes, our sun, and our smoke. So we're going to add our tree to the top first. They'll end up being behind the house, but we want to see the whole tree to start. So I'm going to add a layer to the very top of my layers, click on it and turn on drawing assist so we can use symmetry. And our tree color is our third one on the bottom row. Same monoline brush at 30%. And we're going to start right on our symmetry line, up pretty high, pretty tall trees here. So maybe right about here. And I'm going to start and just kind of come down, curve back to the middle. So something kind of like that. I want it to be a little bit flatter on the bottom. So same thing though. Down, curve to the middle. Something like that, maybe a little bit bigger. I'm going to go pretty fast to get a nice and smooth line and then fill that in. So it's almost like an acorn shape, I would say, but that's the top of our tree. And then we're going to keep going from there. I'm just going to start right on the edge in a little bit and do that same kind of shape back to the middle, fill that in. And I might do one more bigger piece. Maybe not quite that big. But same idea, starting in a little bit of that next level. Fill that in, smooth it out as you go too as well if you need any smoothing done with your brush or your eraser to kind of smooth that out there. I think that looks great. Let's go ahead and draw the trunk as well. So I'm going to go to my layer when you add a layer right below the one that we just created and click on it and turn drawing assist on also, and then grab our fourth color on the bottom row. Same monoline brush, and just a little ways from the center here, I'm going to draw a straight vertical line, hold it down, touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly vertical. That will be the length of my trunk. Then we'll go back to the center horizontally, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen. Connect it across the top under my tree shape there and fill it in. And that is our trunk. And we could have used the selection tool with the rectangle turned on, but we'd have to like recenter it, which we could do. We could have just drawn a square, centered it, whatever. But there's a couple ways to do everything in Procreate. So grab that with your arrow tool to resize it if you need to, if you want to make it taller or wider or anything. And then just recenter it on your center vertical yellow line if you need to, if you ever move it around or resize it. That's our tree. I'm going to go ahead and click on this layer and snap those two layers together, my top two layers, to make my tree. I'm going to drag my tree all the way below all of our layers to the very, very bottom right above our background color layer. Grab it with my arrow tool. The whole thing is selected now, so if you want to resize the whole thing on uniform, freeform, make it taller, wider, anything like that, you can do so. And I'm going to move it on over to the right side of my house here. I might make it a little bit taller. And then, yeah, this right side, I might not have the trunk showing. It'll just kind of go quite a bit towards the top of my canvas and then stick out on the right side just a little bit there, maybe next to my window. but we're going to make another tree on the left side as well. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, slide left on this tree layer and hit duplicate. Either one of these is fine. I'm going to grab it with my arrow tool, move it on over, move it down a little bit as well. And maybe the trunk will stick out a little bit. And I might make the whole thing a little shorter. Beautiful. Okay, doesn't matter where the trunk ends. We're going to cover that up with a bush, and we're going to put a bush on the right side as well. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer above all of my layers so far. I'm going to grab my green color again, third one on the bottom row, and my monoline brush. I'm going to go on the right side of the house here, and essentially I'm just going to start with a horizontal line. So it's going to be a little bit lower than my house is. So I'm going to start there, draw a nice horizontal line, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth, touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. Going out almost to the edge of my canvas a little bit. Then to make the bush shape, I'm just going to start on one end and draw a curved line up, hold that down till it turns nice and smooth. Draw another curve off of that, hold that down, and then another curved line to the baseline, hold that down, adjust it if you need to so it meets there nicely, and then fill that in. That is our little bush. Same layer, I'm going to make one on the other side as well. So same thing, I'm going to start with a nice horizontal line a little bit lower than my house. Curve, and curve, and I'm going to cover up that corner of the house and the tree trunk there. Curve, and fill that in. So now I have two bushes to kind of complete that little lower area there. And then lastly, we just need our sun and our smoke, and then our background. If you need to move anything around or resize it, feel free to do so. On my layer menu, if you want to, we can either snap all of our house layers together or put them in a group. So I'm going to select one of my house layers, slide right on the other one so they're all selected, not including my trees or my bushes, and click group. Then we can minimize this group with the arrow here, and then if the whole group is selected right there, we can grab it with our arrow tool and we can move the whole thing around all at once so that it doesn't mess up any of our pieces. You can also resize it here all at the same time or anything like that. Feel free to do that. Feel free to move your trees around, move your bushes around, whatever works. I might grab everything and move it lower. So I'm going to grab my bushes, slide right on my group with my house, slide right on my two trees, arrow tool, move the whole thing down a smidge just to make more room at the top. And then I might move it to the right a little bit too, just so that it's a little bit more balanced and more centered. Okay, now for our sun, let's go ahead and add a new layer to the top and drag it all the way to the bottom. Grab our sun color, the third one on the top row, same monoline brush, and we're going to make a perfect circle in the background. So good circle shape, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. Kind of whatever size is fine. We'll fill it in. Then we can grab it with our arrow tool on uniform, and we can resize it or move it around. So make it bigger, smaller, anything like that. And I'm just going to kind of nestle it here behind my house in between my trees, like so. Next, we need our smoke, and our smoke is going to be white, which is the current color of our background. So let's go ahead and change our background color now. So on our layer menu, let's click on our background color layer to open up our color selector here and select the first color on the first row to set it to that light blue color. As you can see, our house does stand out a bit from it, but I just didn't want that to get in our way before. But that looks great now. So then for our smoke layer, let's go to our layer menu and add a layer above our tree layers below our house layers. Right in there, grab our bright white color, second one on the top row, and we're still on our monoline brush at 30%, and we're below all of our house layers, but then above our sun. So we can go right where our chimney is here and draw below it, and I'm just going to kind of come up, curve, 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 until we come back to the beginning, connect it at the base there, so we have a shape to fill in. So just kind of whatever you want your little smoke shape to be, you can grab it with your arrow tool and you can resize it or anything if you need to, or just redraw it a couple times until you like the way that it looks. But that is our little smoke coming from our chimney. That looks great. And then once that's done and you like the way that that looks, that is it for our drawing today. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you like the way that yours turned out, and I hope that you maybe learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know what you thought in the comments, or leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see in a future tutorial. The likes and comments really help out my channel, so I really appreciate it. And then if you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see how it turned out. So go ahead and post it there and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.